For most of history, crime was something you could see and touch. To steal, you had to physically take something. To trespass, you had to cross a real, physical boundary. But starting in the mid-20th century, a new kind of criminal behavior started to appear, one that completely broke these old rules. It involved stealing things that couldn't be held and breaking into places that didn't physically exist. This is the story of how the law scrambled to catch up with the digital age, and the fascinating cases that forced us to completely redefine what it means to commit a crime. Believe it or not, the story starts long before computers. In 1903, the famous inventor Guglielmo Marconi was in London, getting ready to show off his amazing new secure long-distance wireless telegraph. He was about to send a message across hundreds of miles. But before he could start, the machine in the lecture hall began tapping out a message all on its own. It spelled out the word rats over and over again, followed by some cheeky poems mocking Marconi. The person behind it was a magician and rival inventor named Neville Maskelyne. He wasn't trying to steal money. He just wanted to prove that Marconi's secure system wasn't so secure after all. This event, over 100 years ago, established the classic early hacker mindset. It was about curiosity, ego, and exposing flaws, not necessarily for financial gain. Fast forward to the 1960s and 70s. This is when the first true digital crimes began to surface, as massive mainframe computers entered universities and banks. But the law had no idea what to do. Admit in 1962. A researcher named Alan Scher wanted more time on the university's shared computer. So, he created what was essentially the world's first password sniffer to steal other users' login credentials and get extra processing time. Was he arrested? Nope. There was no law against stealing computer time. It wasn't a physical object, so legally, no theft had occurred. Then came the salami slicing attacks. In the 1970s, clever bank employees figured out they could write programs to shave off a tiny fraction of a cent from thousands, or even millions, of customer accounts. Each transaction was too small to be noticed, but they added up to a fortune. Since computer fraud wasn't a crime yet, prosecutors had to get creative. They charged these programmers with old laws like mail fraud or wire fraud, arguing that the scheme used mail or telephone lines at some point. In other cases, where hackers broke into systems but didn't take any money, prosecutors actually tried to charge them with theft of electricity, the monetary value of the power the computer used during the hack. As you can imagine, those charges almost never worked. The legal system was completely unprepared for this new digital frontier. The real turning point. The moment cybercrime went from a strange niche problem to a national security threat was 1983. It was a perfect storm of reality and fiction. The reality was a group of teenage friends from Milwaukee who called themselves the 414s, named after their telephone area code. Using simple home computers and modems, they went on a hacking spree. They broke into dozens of high-profile systems across the country, including the Los Alamos National Laboratory where nuclear weapons were designed, and the Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. They didn't do much damage, mostly just explored. But the fact that a bunch of kids could get into such sensitive places was terrifying. At the exact same time, a movie hit theaters that captured the public's imagination, Wargames. It starred Matthew Broderick as a teenager who accidentally hacks into a top-secret military supercomputer and almost starts World War III. The movie was a massive hit. Suddenly, the image of a teenage hacker wasn't just a quirky news story. It was a Hollywood blockbuster threat. The combination of the real life for 14s and the fictional. Wargames sent a shockwave through the US government. Congress was horrified to learn a terrifying fact. At that time, it wasn't technically illegal in America to browse through someone else's computer system, as long as you didn't steal or delete anything. There was no law against digital trespassing. The legal system finally kicked into high gear. In 1986, in direct response to the 414s, the U.S. Congress passed the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, or CFAA. This was the first major federal law that made unauthorized access to protected computers a crime. This law was revolutionary because it introduced a brand new legal idea. Exceeding authorized access. It meant you didn't have to break a digital lock to be a criminal. Simply going into a part of a system where you weren't supposed to be was now illegal. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, the United Kingdom was having its own legal crisis. In a famous 1988 case known as RV Gold and Schifreen, two hackers broke into an early online service called Prestel. They snooped around and even gained access to Prince Philip's personal email account. They were caught and charged under a law from 1981 called the Forgery and Counterfeiting Act. The prosecutors argued that by using someone else's username and password, the hackers were creating a false instrument, just like forging a check. They were initially convicted, but then the case went all the way to the House of Lords, the UK's highest court at the time. The Lords overturned the conviction. In their ruling, they said that forgery requires a physical false instrument, a piece of paper, a fake ID, something you can hold. Electronic impulses flickering on a computer screen were not physical objects, so legally, no forgery had taken place. The hackers walked free. This was a massive embarrassment for the British legal system, and it forced Parliament to act. 2 years later, they passed the Computer Misuse Act of 1990, which, like its American counterpart, finally made unauthorized access to computer material a specific crime. To keep up with hackers, the very definition of crime had to be reinvented. Criminology underwent 3 huge shifts. First, the idea of theft had to change from deprivation to copying. The old definition of theft was that if I steal your car, you no longer have your car. You've been deprived of it. But with data, if I copy your secret files, you still have the original files. The crime had to become the act of unauthorized copying, not the removal of the original. Second, the concept of trespassing had to evolve from physical to logical. Trespassing used to mean stepping onto someone's land. The law had to invent the idea of virtual boundaries. Now, typing a password you're not supposed to know is the legal equivalent of picking the lock on someone's front door. You've crossed a logical boundary, even if you haven't moved an inch. And finally, the focus shifted from property to integrity. While data theft is still a huge issue, modern laws are just as concerned with protecting the integrity of the system itself. The crime isn't just what you take, It's the fact that you undermined the trust and reliability of the entire network. You violated the system's integrity. From a magician playing a prank in 1903 to teenagers accidentally prompting new federal laws. The history of cybercrime shows us how technology constantly forces society to rethink its most basic rules. The cat and mouse game between hackers and the law created the digital world we live in today, shaping our ideas of property, privacy, and even what it means to be in a place. The next time you type in a password, remember that you're participating in a legal ritual that took decades of courtroom battles and legislative panics to create. Thanks for watching, and if you found this interesting, don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the history of technology.